Good afternoon and welcome back to the 2023 Mammoth Trail Fest. My name is Dylan Bowman, joined by my good mate, Mael Backhausen. Mael, how we doing?
Man, I'm excited for this convo.
This is going to be a good one.
I'm excited for this convo.
We are joined as part of our Elite Athlete interview series today by two great Americans, Dan Curts, Garrett Corcoran. Gentlemen, how are we feeling ahead of the race tomorrow?
I don't know, my ankle's been hurting a lot because I messed it up last Saturday after Pikes, but excited to be out there. Legs are feeling good otherwise.
Sandbagging immediately. Come on, bro. You've got this.
Yeah, feeling pretty good, I guess. Just getting back into training here and decided why not race up to like 11,000 feet from sea level.
Wow. So maybe, Dan, let's start with you. I guess, first of all, you're from the East Coast, right? Mm-hmm. New Hampshire? Or?
Yeah, I'm from Maine, but right now I'm training like on the border of Vermont and New Hampshire.
So talk about that a little bit, because most of your competition tomorrow will be folks who train and race in the Mountain West for the most part. And I think, like, looking at Eric LaPuma too, you two, I think, really represent sort of like this next gen of East Coasters who are kicking butt on the trail scene. And so maybe anything you want to say just about like how you're able to take fitness gained and very different terrain coming up to altitude and into the mountains, and where you feel like you have an advantage or where you have a disadvantage.
Yeah, so right now my fitness is a little suspect, so I'm not sure I have an advantage much anywhere right now. But I think some of it's a little bit underrated. Like I know Eric can he can run a true VK quite close to his house. Like there's good climbing. And some of the dirt roads are just like hilariously steep. Like I have a handful of like roads like in town where you can get like over 20% climbs on stuff. And the AT goes through my town, so there's obviously that, like a lot of good stuff there. Yeah, I mean, I think the Whites and the White Mountains are quite cool. Like been training there a little bit in the last couple weeks. I mean, it's like, like an hour drive to some like legit good stuff. Like I can get, like a 5,000 foot climb. So that matches up to most places. I'd say the trails are just so slow. Yeah. Like they're just so hard. Like I did like an 18-mile run, like 2 weeks ago now, and it took like over 5 hours. Like, and it was like fairly hard. It was like 9,000 feet of climbing in 18 miles too, but like, yeah, they're just slow. So it'll be interesting to see.
It builds strength though, doesn't it? I mean, like.
Yeah, like I think that's some of the thing that some people, I don't know, but like I think is important. Like instead of lifting, right, you're just building like this specific strength on those trails. It'll be interesting to see how it translates to incredibly smooth trails at high altitude. So yeah, I'm hoping some of the track background helps out there.
Yeah.
Garrett, I think everyone wants to know, mate, who are you representing tomorrow? What country? What college? Just what are you going to wear?
What presidential administration?
I brought a few different outfits, and I haven't decided which one I'm wearing yet, but I previewed one last Saturday after the Pikes Peak ascent. So anybody that was at the party probably saw it. I think that might be what I'm wearing tomorrow. It should be pretty noticeable.
So, Garrett, we were just talking about how you've been on sort of a racing binge this season, basically,
Overdose.
Like at least the last several months. I met you at Broken Arrow, and since then you've probably raced like a dozen more times. Just talk about like your season, the strategy behind it, and maybe be honest about where you are with your fitness now, whether you feel overtrained or undertrained or whatever.
Yeah. I got really excited in the winter after coming off a couple of good races to finish my year last year, and I wanted to race a lot and targeted a bunch of short races because I figured I'd be able to recover from them quickly, and if I have a bad one, I'd got another one a week or two later and I can bounce back pretty quick. And it was going pretty well coming out of the winter, and like the US champs and worlds and even Broken Arrow. I had a better race than I gave myself credit for there. And kind of since then, I feel like I've been kind of run ragged, and I've been trudging through a lot of these races. Just like the climbing legs have felt like they weren't quite there like they were 4 months ago. But I think I just probably need to give myself more rest in between some of the races, and I probably would have been feeling better. So I've taken a pretty easy week this week, and hoping that does the trick to help me feel good. tomorrow. So
The week before his race in Austria, he had like 40,000 feet of climbing. But genuinely 40,000 feet of
well,
climbing.
I can't go to a new place with such rad mountains and not go explore a little bit. Like I was holding back a little bit when I was in Colorado last week. Like I did this A Basin Cirque series, and then a week later had Pikes Peak, and I wanted to go at least hit a couple of 14ers before Pikes and like get up that high and just go see a little bit, because I'd never spent any time in Colorado before. And there's a lot to see out there and a lot to go do. So I had, kept it chill and backed off towards the end of the week and felt like I did a good enough job of both exploring and going and seeing new things. But like I can't just like go somewhere for a week before a race and just sit there and like look at everything. So I think I'd have a really tough time if I ever run any of the UTMB races, just because like you sit there in Chamonix and there's Mont Blanc and everything all around you. It's just so enticing.
I mean, as a younger guy, and speaking as like a grizzled vet, that may be the thing that you need to work on, right? It's just like the ability to sit and stare at the wall in a hotel room in order to like race at your true potential as an athlete, right?
Yeah, I think maybe just don't go out there a couple weeks before, because that's what I did in Austria. I went out there 2 weeks before the race because I was a little worried about the jet lag and stuff, and also wanted to go explore a little bit. And I figured I'd be really tired after the race and not want to go around and see a lot of stuff. And I had Broken Arrow 10 days later anyway, so I wanted to come back for that. So I went out 2 weeks early, and I spent a lot of time on my feet, but I was not working very hard for most of it. And at that point, I just felt invincible, like I could do anything and bounce back from it. And maybe I'm paying for it now.
That's exactly when the universe says, "Yeah, we're gonna teach you a lesson."
You boys were both out at Austria this year at the World Mountain and Trail Running Champs. How was that experience, and how has it compared to coming to the bigger races in the US, like Broken Arrow and Mammoth Trail Fest? Like, just tell us about how that was for you.
Are we allowed to curse?
100%.
Yes.
It was a bit shit. I got COVID out in Austria and didn't totally know what was going on, just felt terrible, and then raced and was like, it was incredibly lackluster. And then, basically came back, and turns out I had COVID, and then that affected me for a while. But I mean, the whole experience at Austria was really cool. It was fun having all of the races, day after day. Getting to watch Garrett race, getting to watch all the long trail people. I think it's an underrated experience. And, like MK was out there. I think she would probably say the same stuff. It was just really, really freaking cool. And to the second half of that question, I haven't really done a lot of these races, so I'm not sure how it compares. This will be my first, Golden Trail race. And then, I haven't done Mammoth, I haven't done Pikes, I haven't done any of these before, so we're finding out what they're like.
Yeah, I think aside from the competition, the main difference racing out there versus here in America is just the amount of people and support there is out on the trail. Like at the World Champs, which obviously it's going to be a big crowd out there because it's the World Champs, but it's my understanding that there's a lot more people at some other trail races out in Europe. But almost the entire course was lined for 28 miles with people. Like, you were never alone, even if you were in no man's land in the race. There were always people on the side of the course. And in America, even in the biggest races, you go through such long stretches where there's nobody there and it's just silent. It's just you and your footsteps. So I think that's the main difference. And that energy really helps propel you to some really cool performances, I feel like. But also I feel like they integrate the towns into the races a lot more over there. During the short trail at the World Champs, we ran through 3 different towns, and you just run flat on the road for a little bit, and then you jump back into a big climb. You
should have done the classic race. It was all in town.
Oh, I know. Yeah, you guys got delayed for 30 minutes by a traffic jam in the mountain race.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's part of Tim's vision here with the Mammoth Trail Fest, is just really make it a community-oriented event. Still, there won't be people lining the dragons back up to the top of the peak tomorrow or throughout race weekend, but it's slowly building that mountain sports culture. Will take a couple generations, I think, to get to where the Europeans are, because, that's always been part of their history and tradition as it relates to their general sporting culture. Dan, go a little bit deeper on the COVID thing, because we were just talking about how it sort of put you on the shelf much longer than you expected.
Yeah, I don't want to come off as complaining too much on it, I guess, but honestly, got back and it wasn't diagnosed pericarditis, but from everyone I talked to, I talked to a couple of people I knew who are doctors and stuff, and really couldn't get the heart rate up without being like trashed all day, even on just easy like flat 9 mile run. So then I basically was like, all right, well, if the heart's inflamed and stuff, like just keep the heart rate low. So then I would basically go and keep my heart rate below like 110 or something and be walking, like walking uphill and then maybe jogging back down. And so that ended up being like a little over 2 months. And then, just had some like weird health issues with it. And in the last handful of weeks, I've been able to train and have only had one day where I had to like bail from a workout because the heart was just, it's hard to explain. It was just weird and like painful. It's like, seems like a bad thing to keep running through. So not totally sure where the fitness is for this. And,
but have things been, they've turned around midsummer? Or?
Yeah. So Worlds for me, I raced June 7th and 10th. And it was genuinely the next, just over 2 months before I was able to really like, and I'm not actually go run, like just even like a normal run was okay. So it's been kind of an interesting summer, because then I went out to Leadville with Brooks and like rolled my ankle on the smoothest trail. It was just kind of hilarious.
That's
like,
always where you get guys, the smooth trails where you're not expecting it.
It was like setback after setback kind of things. And so this is like the end of the season for most people, but I'm trying to like maybe start a season here a little bit. And because really I raced Sunapee, had no idea what fitness I was in going into that, and then Worlds, and that's been the year so far. Going into Sunapee, I had no idea where it was at either. There were a couple weeks, like I don't know if it was like 3 weeks before, I didn't run once that week. Like I was just trying to ski. So it's been an interesting year.
Boys, Debo was out in Chamonix recently for UTMB, had an interview with Zach Miller after he placed second at UTMB, and he spoke to I guess how he experiences racing against the best in the world. What does it mean to you guys to come to races like this or go to the world champs and race against the best in the world? Like, how does that motivate you?
That's what I was after this year. I wanted to go after a lot of competitive races and see where I stacked up, and it's really cool that all the fastest Europeans are coming out here. So we get the chance to race them. We don't have to travel overseas, and they kind of get to experience what our weekly or monthly race schedule might be like. And it's a lot of fun doing this stuff, and like it's really fun meeting an international crowd and making friends that live all over the world, and being able to stay in touch with them in social media in this day and age is awesome. So I definitely appreciate the opportunity.
I mean, I haven't done a ton of mountain races. Like obviously Garrett's done more races in the last like month than I have in my career. But I think there are so many good Americans, obviously, like there's a handful, but the European scene is just so different. So I was really hoping to go to Europe for an extended period this summer and do a ton of racing there. And so, I mean, that's what it's all about. Like if you aren't racing the best people, then, it's kind of a miss in my opinion. So next summer, I definitely want to go to Europe and just stick my nose in it and just see, see what happens. And I think that's a big part of this scene is like figuring out all the different races. Like Pikes Peak is going to be so much different than anything else on the schedule because it's so high, such a long time. Like all the races are so different. I think finding the ones over in Europe with the deepest competition is just the most exciting thing for me.
So going a little deeper on that, like obviously you guys both kind of represent this ascendant younger generation of trail runners. You ran at Cal, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and then you ran collegiately too, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, we raced each other since like high school.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So this is great. So I'd love to just like hear you guys like just kind of meditate on the current era of trail running, what you guys are excited about, like as sort of people who are slowly at the beginning stages of building a career in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting seeing the scene shift. Like I knew Garrett would be one of the people who would be like trending this direction, and I've always wanted to. It's just like the opportunity didn't seem there for a while, but now it's like obviously there's been a handful of people this year like sign right out of college. Mm-hmm. Both Mika and Anna just signed with Brooks, who I'm also with. Yep. And then we also have a kid named Talon who is very good in college as well, on the track and cross country. So yeah, it's just been exciting to see. And I think it'll definitely start shifting. I think it would be cool if it started shifting some of the like sub 50K stuff, sub ultra distance. Cause like Garrett's been doing, you can just race all the time and you can just get like kind of build more momentum around stuff. Yeah, it's just gonna be really fun to see like the whole scene is just obviously shifting, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's making the sub ultra trail very competitive, like very quickly. Like a lot of these kids that are just graduating from college that are a few years younger than us are coming in and just like they're kicking my ass. Yeah. And it's interesting, like seeing people come straight to the trails from college rather than like most people, especially older than me and about my age, like got burnt out, didn't run for a little while, and then just kind of found trail running, thought it was fun, and starting to get competitive in it. But yeah, these people coming out with incredible fitness, like Anna was in the U.S. Champs final this year in the 1500.
Yep.
Like people like that coming to trails is
it's exciting.
It's really going to change the game. So yeah.
I thought Garrett was like 40. I didn't think he was young.
I'm 27.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Dan and I were the same graduating class in high school.
Dan, I just want to take you back. Like, what was it like to win the Gatorade Boys Cross Country Runner of the Year back in 2013?
Is that true?
What was that
Just
like?
such an honor.
No
Such
way.
an honor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also from Maine, you know, like there's not all that many people in Maine. So
Ben True's from Maine, great runner.
Ben, I will say Maine might have like the best per capita running
Yeah.
history. Like the list is pretty impressive. And especially with like, even with the Brooks team, like there's been so many people from Maine who are like, I mean, currently Isaiah Harris is on the track team and there's a cool history there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I grew up in Maine, like I won like 11 state titles. There's like just not that many people.
That's impressive, man. The family must have been really happy.
Yeah, everyone was just over the moon about it, you know.
Yeah. So I am now. I just read about it on the internet. I'm like, oh, I've got the
I'd love to hear you guys both talk about your training a little bit, especially like specifically for Mammoth. Obviously, you have two very different approaches to this weekend's race. You've been racing your face off for the last several months, Dan. You've sort of been building back to fitness. So any details you can add to the preparation, I think people would love to hear.
Well, do you want me to talk about the training I wanted to do or the training I actually did?
Maybe add a little detail on both, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, the Pikes and Mammoth were my goal races after Broken Arrow back in June, and I was signed up for a lot in between, but wanted to use those as like workouts or, you know, efforts to get ready for this one. I did a lot of the Cirque Series races, and those are about half the distance of this with steeper profiles, but it's, you know, a fast, like gut punching climb and then like a quick descent. So I felt like those would help me get ready for this, but I wanted to get up high and run, you know, hill intervals up at Snowbird and like, you know, run tram laps and stuff before Pikes, and just never really had the time to get up there because I was feeling run down all the time. Like I'd get to the middle of the week and want to go run a workout and want to go run some hill intervals, but I'd step out the door and start running and the heart rate would spike really quick while I'm just warming up. So I just, you know, run an easy run for 45 minutes and call it a day. So I definitely didn't get to do nearly as much as I had wanted to. But I at least was able to keep it fairly consistent, even though the volume was a little bit lower and the intensity was a little bit lower. So happy I'm healthy now at least. And, you know, the legs are feeling good. I finally rested up enough that I at least am not going into this tired. So
I'll say that, so like end of last summer, I basically just decided I was going to do trail mountain racing. And so I'd say since December, I've just changed a lot of stuff, and so I've just added in these longer, like over distance runs that are just very like low effort, like low heart rate, just being out for 3 to 5 hours, which is not a lot for a lot of trail people, but for me it's so long. Like I'm going to experiment with fueling tomorrow, like in the race, like there's a lot of shifts, but I'd say going into this, I knew like it's basically one climb, one descent, and the descent is super long, and so without a ton of running in my legs, I was like, I just need to be able to absorb it and not have the legs like fade. And so I was just trying to get very steep, not really runnable running, I guess. And so where it's just like the descents are just hilarious. And you're just like jumping down rocks the whole time. So I've had a handful of runs where it's, over 2,000 feet a mile kind of thing. And so those descents, I'm hoping to strengthen the legs and callus them enough. And, these like 4 different runs I've done. Because they're just not that long. I don't have like months of consistent running, which I think would make the legs more resilient. So I'm hoping those kind of serve that role as like proxy of instead of training.
Right. Yeah.
Not sure.
What do you guys like? We've spoken a lot about shorter distances in the space trail running. When are you guys going to make your 100-mile debut?
So I went out. I was just at
Leadville.
And no interest right now. Everyone's like, I was like puking and shitting my pants the last 50 miles. You're like, why would I want to do that? You're like, can't run for 3 months. You're like, no, I like running.
Yeah, I feel like the 100-mile space is something I've always said I want to save that until I'm like 40, just to always have something to work towards, like another goal that I can set a personal best in something that I've never done before, and like a new challenge later on. But yeah, like maybe a little bit of a hot take, but like looking at all the pictures of people from Western states, almost every picture I see of somebody is like they're sitting in a chair with their shoes off, and people are rubbing their feet, like a towel over their head. Like, I mean, it's like people are doing impressive things, but it's not really what I want to be doing. It sounds pretty miserable. I've gone over 50 miles once, and the last 20 miles of the Canyons 100K last year was not a whole lot of fun. So
this might be an incredibly cold take, but I think the ultra I'd be most interested in is Barclays. Like, I love just bushwhack, just total adventure where it's just heinous. And so I think instead of something like Western States or Leadville, I think I'd be a little more interested in that. I mean, that's what Garrett does all winter too on skis, so maybe he'd be in the same boat.
Yeah, that's a good inside joke. Go follow Garrett the Parrot, whatever your account is. It's hilarious. Maybe final question for you guys. We just had the Hemmings on the couch, and they made an interesting observation that I guess I hadn't thought about, that they thought that there wouldn't be a lot of movement after the peak in tomorrow's race. In other words, most of the separation will happen on the climb, and because it's a non-technical downhill, it's going to be hard to try and catch up to the people in front of you, barring implosion. How are you guys thinking about it strategically? Where do you think your strengths and weaknesses are?
Yeah, I kind of agree with them. It's unless somebody really blows up, you're probably not going to catch them on the downhill. You can run really fast on this downhill, but so can everybody else. Yeah. So I think they're right in that observation. So I don't feel as confident in my climbing as I did 4 months ago, but I'm going to have to get out there and try to stick my nose in it from the beginning and not really hold back if I want to end up in top 5. And if I decide I don't want to be in the top 5, then I can let everybody go and feel good about catching people as they blow up on the downhill. But, that's not as satisfying of a race for me. I'd rather blow up and know I put everything I had into it than have held back and get to feel good about passing people. So you'll probably see me farther up than I should be early in the race, and maybe I'll fade really early and you won't see me anyway. But
love it. Yeah, it's tough. I would assume, I could be completely off, but I would assume if the race started at the summit and just went down, I would assume I would do quite well.
Yeah.
But getting there, I don't know. Everyone else just raced pikes, and they're certainly used to running well higher than 11,000 feet. So I think the line just might be a little thinner for me, and I don't know how much I should actually flirt with that, because I think once I cross over, I'm probably not coming back. And yeah, I think if the race was like a more technical descent or something, you could make up time. But yeah, just having seen the videos and stuff and seen what the trails are like, no one's putting minutes on people down the hill.
Well, Chad Hall put minutes on me downhill last year in the 50K. I don't think I had a mile over 6 minutes for the last 6 or 7 miles last year, and he still put a good 3 or 4 minutes on me.
Maybe Chad will win tomorrow then.
Dude, his power index does increase every time he comes back to California, so I believe it.
Anything else from you, Mile?
No, thanks, gentlemen, and have a great run tomorrow. It's going to be exciting to see you guys mix it up, and all the best to it.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks,
I'm
appreciate
glad to have the storyline of you guys rekindling your collegiate rivalry out on the trails.
Yeah, I mean, I think before this, the last time we had like run together was, you know, like a cool down after a like Peyton Jordan 5K or something out at Stanford.
Yeah, I think it was the one I paced where you ran your personal best at the time, and I had wished I'd stayed in instead of dropping out at halfway.
yeah, that is what it was.
Amazing, guys. Well, thanks so much for coming in. Good luck tomorrow, and give them hell.
Sweet. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
We'll be right back with our final interview for the day. Noah Williams and Chad Hall. Right, Matt? See you soon.